endangered patients' lives, exposed staff to hazards, and undermined the integrity of one of the foremost tertiary hospitals in the country.
The National Agency for the Control of AIDS, NACA, has announced that Nigeria will take delivery of a groundbreaking HIV prevention drug, lenacapavir, that has shown 100% effectiveness in preventing HIV infection in clinical trials. A statement by the head of public relations, NACA, Toyin Aderibigbe, notes that the agency has secured regulatory approval from the National Agency for Food and Drug Administration and Control, NAFDAC. According to the statement, it is an injectable treatment administered twice a year, making it a more convenient alternative to daily oral prevention drugs. The drug is expected to be available in Nigeria and 119 other low and middle income countries at an affordable price annually.
In many rural communities across Osun State, childhood is being cut short as teenage pregnancy quietly robs young girls of their education, health, and future prospects. Investigations show that most affected teenagers are compelled to abandon school with little chance of acquiring skills or securing livelihoods to care for themselves and their babies. In this report, Radio Nigeria correspondent Mojisola Oladele examines the causes, consequences, and societal responses to teenage pregnancy in some rural parts of the state.
Ms. Tosin Adewusi, a resident of a rural community in Odoti, local government area of Osun State, became pregnant at the age of 14 by a 20-year-old man. Tragically, she lost the pregnancy due to complications associated with her young age and lack of physical and emotional preparedness for childbirth. Narrating her ordeal, Ms. Adewusi spoke of the pain and trauma she endured at a stage of life meant for learning and growth.
So when I got to the hospital, the pregnancy caused a lot of money, that there is no enough money to take good care of it. So after then, my husband realized that what he's doing is not right. Then he said he's going to take good care of me, that he enrolled me to the school that I should start.
Unlike many teenage mothers in similar circumstances, Ms. Adewusi received some form of support. The family of the man responsible for the pregnancy accepted responsibility and agreed to sponsor her education up to secondary school level with the condition that she would later marry their son. However, some outcomes remain rare in many rural communities across the state. Most teenage girls affected by early pregnancy permanently drop out of school, lack employable skills, and are left without family or societal support. In several cases, the men responsible for the pregnancies abandon the girls and disappear without accountability. During a program visit to Akiriboto community in Ayedade local government area, Radio Nigeria observed several girls aged between 13 and 18 who were either pregnant or already nursing between 1 or 3 children. Many of the children appeared undernourished and poorly cared for. One of the girls, Ms. Bisola Jimo, told Radio Nigeria that she became pregnant at age 12 while in junior secondary school too. She explained that the man involved only visited the community during an Eid al-Maulud celebration when they met, an encounter that resulted in the pregnancy. Ms. Jimo said all efforts to trace the man proved unsuccessful, as even members of her family denied knowing him. Unable to communicate effectively in English, she disclosed that she survives by borrowing clothes for her 2-year-old child and selling farm produce on market days. Reacting to the situation, the secretary of an Osun-based non-governmental organization, Mrs. Yemi Ilesomi, said findings from our organization's outreach programs indicate that child marriage is not prevalent in Osun State.
As an NGO, we have been to virtually all the local government areas in Osun State, and we have noticed that child marriage is not as strong as in some other parts of Nigeria.
Mrs. Ilesomi explained that girls forced into early marriage often suffer low self-esteem, health complications, and restricted access to education. She called for sustained sensitization and awareness campaigns on the dangers of child marriage and teenage pregnancy in schools, communities, and religious centers. Also speaking, the Osun State Director of the National Orientation Agency, NOA, Prince Stephen Adebi, described child marriage as a violation of Nigerian law.
Thank God for both the Muslims and Christians, that the traditional religious family are against it.
Adebi advised parents, particularly mothers, to pay closer attention to their children, especially girls, to guide them towards informed and responsible life choices from Ward 2, Unit 4, Onyon, Oduoti local government area, Mojisola Oladele.
Every 1st of March has been set aside by the United Nations as Zero Discrimination Day. It is a day set aside to create awareness and global movement to end all forms of discrimination. The day celebrates the right of everyone to live a full and productive life with dignity. In this report, correspondent Abiodun Adeoye examines effects of discrimination and the way out.
This year, the emphasis is on the discrimination faced by people living with and at risk of HIV. This act prevents access to health services, violates rights, and holds back progress towards ending AIDS by 2030. Speaking with Radio Nigeria, the branch secretary of the Nigerian Red Cross Osun State, Mr. Tolulagbe Ogunleye, noted that stigma and discrimination will no doubt hamper progress being made in tackling HIV/AIDS, as it will discourage HIV carriers from disclosing their status and prevent them from accessing treatment and care. While noting that discrimination has psychosocial impact on HIV carriers, Mr. Ogunleye called for policy and healthcare system that will make HIV tests and care private.
But how do you feel when you and a very high-profile person having this, and you are meeting the person at HIV center in an hospital? You know the psychosocial impact of it, because it will be like, honorable so don't tell me you are a carrier.
In another contribution, a public commentator, Mr. Bayomi Oyeleke, who noted that the issue of discrimination is not experienced by only HIV/AIDS carriers, recalled the days of apartheid in South Africa and Osukas in the eastern part of Nigeria, describing discrimination as a crime against humanity and a scourge to an egalitarian society. Mr. Oyeleke said discrimination robs the society of the opportunity of benefiting from those who are naturally talented but have been neglected through the act. He advocated legislation that will ensure equal rights for every human being, irrespective of peculiarities or differences.
This act of discrimination has to be frowned at. There must be legislation and sanctions against any institution, individual or government that violates the right of individuals to have access to decent life, to fight their own religion, to move freely, to have access to economic activities of their choice.
Other respondents, including Mrs. Temini Jesu Aderogba and Mr. Frank Uweke, noted that discrimination has deprived many of economic, social, health, and political opportunities and called for aggressive campaign against it. While appealing to every tier of government to rise against discrimination, the respondents also tasked religious leaders to use their position to preach against it. The theme for this year's Zero Discrimination Day is People First. For Radio Nigeria in Ilesha, I am Abiodun Adeoye.
Ikpenrido, a community in Atakumosa, East local government of Osun State, is one of the towns where artisanal gold mining has been linked to contamination of local water, soil, and ecosystems. Radio Nigeria correspondent Lekon Okondeji interrogate the water situation in the community, where residents say they go extra mile to get clean water for drinking and domestic use. His report.
Multiple environmental studies of mining sites across town and local community of Osun State, including a health risk assessment of the heavy metal level in soils from mining beds published in 2025 by K. Emumejaye, an assessment of radionuclide concentration in soil from mining sites published in 2024 by F. Aramodu, report heavy metal contamination in water sample from mining pits and nearby streams. Ikpenido in Atakumosa East local government is one of such community listed in the published report of the mining activities. This study raised concerns about long-term contamination of water sources used by local people. During a visit to the community, Radio Nigeria spoke with one of the high-ranking leaders of the town, the Odole of Ikpenido, Chief Amos Oluwadare, who said the lack of access to potable water in Ikpenido had made residents to rely on well water, which he described as not good for their health and general well-being. Corroborating Chief Oluwadare, another community leader, Mrs. Adenike Oluwadare, explained that as a housewife, getting water for daily use was a difficult task, making her resolve into buying sachet water for drinking and cooking. She added that water from some of the wells in the town could only be safe for human consumption when treated, a development which costs time and money that increases burden on households. Also speaking, Mr. Sola Ajayi narrated how people fetch water from stream to meet their daily needs. He hinted that most of the deep wells constructed by either government, individual, or corporate organization have ceased functioning and have been abandoned.
At the time when that the work which they give us is spoiled, so the one we are using before our father used, that the one we back to it. So we back to our normal sim water way we used to.
Mr. Ajayi called on government at all levels to intensify efforts at providing pipe-borne water at rural community to prevent outbreak of waterborne diseases. Meanwhile, another resident of Ipenido, Oluwaseyi Tobiloba, said certain percentage of households still have access to safe water by using treatment or connected boreholes, but always encounter problem of power supply.
Government water is here, but it's not for maybe let me say around that 2020 they do that, but some is still function. Some you come and repair it, make it work like before again. I think we need this electricity. This place is very bad. Also, we want government to do that for us.
Mr. Tobiloba noted that while expanding safe and sustainable water supply to rural communities, government should ensure regular power supply to enable people explore alternative water sources. Recall that in January 2023, the state governor, Senator Ademola Adeleke, announced the construction of a borehole in each of the 332 wards of the state with generators to power them to meet the water needs of the people. However, residents of Ipenido who spoke with Radio Nigeria said the boreholes have ceased functioning for over a year. Is the government aware of the situation, particularly the peculiarity of gold mining towns like Ipenido? Mrs. Odelola Ibidu is the General Manager, Rural Water and Environmental Sanitation Agency, RUWESA, Osun State.
There was the first phase, the second phase, and the government is still in the process of providing another set of boreholes to make sure that it goes around the state.
Mrs. Ibidu promised government commitment to solving the water problem faced by the people, particularly the gold mining communities. From Ipenido, Atakumosa East Local Government Area of Osun State, Lekan Okandeji for Grassroots Nigeria.
The Commandant, the Nigerian Security and Civil Defense Corps, Mr. Augustine Padonu, has tasked residents in the state on regular management of the environment through protection of drainages and prevention of bush burning, as well as prompt responses to all forms of environmental hazards. The Commandant gave the charge in his speech to commemorate celebration of this year's International Civil Defense Day, which is usually celebrated on the 1st of March globally. Mr. Padonu, who commended the efforts put in place by men of the command in tackling insecurity-related issues, explained that their efforts describe their integrity and commitment to the service of protecting humanity. He, however, implored the sister security agents in the state for more synergy. In his goodwill message, the royal father of the event, the Sabigano of Igano land in Ukyogun area, Oba Saliu Oyemola Aziz, who acknowledged the unwavering comment of the gallant officer of the command, most especially the Agro Ranger.
The Nigerian Army has trained 60 young soldiers to strengthen efforts to protect oil facilities and curb oil theft in the Niger Delta. The exercise held at the headquarters of the 3 Battalion Nigerian Army in Delta State has monitored by the commander of 63 Brigade Nigerian Army, Morumfolu Shonibare, and the commanding officer of the battalion, Abdulaziz Haruna, alongside officials from other security agencies. The soldier drawn by the 89 regular recruit intake completed the training barely 2 months after passing out from the Nigerian Army depot. During the exercise, the soldiers were trained in crowd control, peace enforcement and anti-terrorism measures with emphasis on protecting civilian lives and property while safeguarding oil and gas infrastructure. Addressing the soldiers at their graduation, the commander of 63 Brigade Nigerian Army described the training, which began on January 5, 2026, as a critical foundation for their military careers. He explained that the program was designed to prepare the recruits for the challenges of military operations, particularly internally security and counter-insurgency duties in the oil-rich Niger Delta.
This is the world today, the stories that made the headlines. UCH began 5 days warning strike Army stepped up action against oil theft in the Niger Delta. Still to come, West African nations activate standby force. Fresh Iranian strikes hit Saudi Arabia. Stay tuned.
Thank you for staying tuned. Continuing with stories on the program world today. The chairman of the Independent National Electoral Commission, INEC, Professor Joash Amopitan, says the credibility of elections in the country begins with political parties operating transparently and within the law. Professor Amopitan made the remark as political parties prepare for their primaries scheduled to hold between 23rd of next month and May 30th ahead of 2027 general elections. A statement by his chief press secretary, Mr. Dayo Oketola, notes that the review became necessary following significant legal and operational changes introduced by the new electoral law. The statement reveals that the electoral body is reviewing its guidelines and regulations for political parties to align with the provisions of the Electoral Act 2026 and emerging electoral realities. According to the statement, the changes affect political party administration, candidate nomination processes, compliance obligations, dispute resolution mechanisms, and the Commission's regulatory responsibilities. Professor Amopitan explained that lessons from previous elections were also informing the review process, particularly recurring challenges such as opaque party primaries, membership dispute, weak financial disclosure practices, and exclusionary participation patterns, among others.
West African nations have agreed to activate a regional standby force to combat waves of violence by cross-border armed groups in the region. The decision was made at a security meeting of military chiefs of the Economic Community of West African States, ECOWAS, in Sierra Leone. The bloc held the meeting at a time when the region faces what experts said is an existential security threat that has seen thousands of people killed and hundreds of thousands displaced. Armed groups have targeted the Sahelian countries of Mali, Niger, Burkina Faso, and Nigeria.
The United Kingdom's Royal Air Force Base 1 of Akrotiri in Cyprus has witnessed a suspected Iranian drone attack overnight. President Nikos Christodoulides said in a speech, adding that the Shahid-type unmanned aerial vehicle caused minor damage when it crashed into the military facilities at midnight. Akrotiri, southwest of the sprawling coastal city of Limassol, is one of the two bases the UK has retrained in the former one colony since independence in 1960.
New Iranian strikes have been reported across the Middle East, including in Saudi Arabia, where an oil refinery fire is being curtailed. A joint statement from Gulf states and the US condemns Iran's indiscriminate and reckless missile and drone attacks. It comes after Israel and the US struck Iran on Saturday, killing the country's supreme leader, Ayatollah Khamenei. The Israeli military says it has launched additional strikes on Tehran. Authorities in Iran have, however, warned residents not to go out onto the streets to protest. Meanwhile, in Kuwait, several U.S. fighter planes have crashed in what the U.S. military says was an apparent friendly fire incident.
Iran has threatened to withdraw from the 2026 World Cup after U.S. strikes that killed Supreme Leader Ayatollah Ali Khamenei. Violence between Iran, America, and Israel escalated last weekend, with bombs being dropped from all sides. Iranian Football Federation President Mehdi Taj has put the country's involvement in extreme doubt. The Iranian football president explained that the doubt was due to the crisis that erupted just 3 months before the World Cup in USA, Canada, and Mexico, which Iran are due to compete at. He, however, added that the sport chiefs are the ones who must decide on that. Meanwhile, Iran has been drawn in a group with New Zealand, Belgium, and Egypt, with the first feature slated for June 16 this year.
Frog is one of the popular animals with numerous features. However, a unique frog is the one with a glass body. For details, let us join Emilia Ojemudia.
The glass frogs belong to the amphibian family Centrolenidae, order Anura, native to the Central American and Colombian rainforests. The general background coloration of most glass frogs is primarily lime green. The abdominal skin of some members of this family is transparent and translucent, giving the glass frog its common name. The internal viscera, including the heart, liver, and gastrointestinal tract, are visible through the skin. When active, their blood makes them visible, and when sleeping, most of the blood is concealed in the liver, thereby hiding them. Glass frogs are arboreal, that is, living mainly on trees, feeding on small insects and only coming out for mating season. Their transparency conceals them very effectively when sleeping on a green leaf, as they habitually do. However, climate change and habitat fragmentation have been threatening the survival rate.
That script on the glass frog was written by Rashida Makinde.
To end the news in the world today from the stable of Radio Nigeria, here again are the day's top stories. Members of staff of the University College Hospital UCH Ibadan have commenced a 5-day warning strike over inadequate power supply. The Nigerian Army has trained 60 young soldiers to strengthen efforts to protect oil facilities and curb oil theft in the Niger Delta. The National Agency for the Control of AIDS, NACA, has announced that Nigeria will take delivery of a groundbreaking HIV prevention drug, lenacapavir, that has shown 100% effectiveness in preventing HIV infection in clinical trials. New Iranian strikes have been reported across the Middle East, including the Saudi Arabia, where an oil refinery fire is being curtailed.
That's it on The World Today. Join us tomorrow for a fresh edition of the program. Modukwe Toba edited. I'm Chinelo Obidike. Enjoy the rest of your day.
And my name is Dayo Adinga. Well, I think the engineer was not supporting me mentioning my name. Thank you for listening. Join us again tomorrow. Enjoy the rest of the day.